One of the biggest brains in America, conservative thinker. He consults with everybody because they all pick his brain, and he still has enough brain left to be on this show, which doesn't take very much. But he's here. He's from Princeton University, Professor Robert George. He has written one of the best articles on abortion that I think I have ever read, because it flips the pro-choice thing and shows what a ridiculous argument this really is. And the reason why we're talking about it is because he says that Barack Obama is the biggest pro-abortion extremist that has that we've ever had run for president of the United States. Did I capture that right, Professor?
Oh, hello, Glenn. How are you?
Good. How are you? Now we're getting all formal again.
I'm doing very well. Yes, I believe that the record shows, and in the article that you were kind enough to mention, I give my reasons for believing that Barack Obama has the most extreme pro-abortion record and set of policies of anyone who's ever sought the presidency of the United States on a major party's ticket.
He said just recently in this last debate that he was not for voting, to let children die in the closets of the hospital. He said there were laws on the books. He did not champion that kind of stuff.
I'm afraid Senator Obama is not telling the truth about that. The record is very clear. Here's what happened. Jill Stanek, who was a nurse at Christ Hospital in Chicago, and some other nurses, had the experience of watching tiny babies who had survived abortions and were temporarily alive be simply discarded without even given comfort care. Jill Stanek found one baby in a soiled linen closet just left to die, again, without even comfort care. She brought this, and other nurses brought this kind of activity.
Hold on just a second. Professor, comfort care would just be somebody there with the child, right?
If you've ever been with an elderly person who's dying and it's no longer possible to try to save them, they're headed toward death. They aren't simply discarded. They're not thrown in the refuse heap. They're not sent down to the morgue. They're given basic comfort care so that they can die as comfortably as possible. And that's true with babies who die or people at any age who die. But these babies were not even given that courtesy. Because they were survivors of abortion, they were simply discarded. And as I say, Nurse Stanek found one in a soiled linen closet, if you can imagine. She brought this to the attention of prosecutors. The Attorney General of the state of New York said that he looked into it, that unfortunately there was no law in Illinois under which he could prosecute for this kind of behavior. As a result, the Illinois legislature took up legislation supported by Republicans and Democrats and people who were pro-choice, by the way, as well as people who were pro-life, if you honor that pro-choice idea, which, of course, I'm very critical of. Anyway,
I want to get to that in a second, because that is – wait until you hear this, America. It's the best thought on the pro-choice stuff you've ever heard. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, the prosecutors couldn't prosecute, they said, because the Attorney General said there wasn't a law available that was adequate for a prosecution, to sustain a prosecution. There are technical reasons for that. I could go into it. So the legislature took up a bill that would fix that would provide a basis. It's called the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. And if it had been enacted in Illinois, eventually it was enacted at the federal level and signed into law by President Bush. But without it, babies could continue to be discarded in this way. And with it, they would at least be given basic comfort care. And those who were capable of surviving would be given full medical care so that they would be able to continue with their lives. A few people opposed this, and the only person in the Illinois legislature to actually speak out against it and try to stop it was Barack Obama. He then made up a series of stories when he was confronted with what he had done for why he had done it. He said, for example, at one point that, he would have supported the bill, but he was afraid that the bill would cut back on the availability of abortion itself because there was not a so-called abortion neutrality clause as there was in the federal bill. He accused people who criticized him on that of being liars. Well, then those people, and they're at the National Right to Life Committee, produced, Glenn, the documentary evidence proving that Barack Obama had in fact voted against a bill with a neutrality clause. So the people he called liars showed that he was lying. He then shifted his story and said that the only reason that he voted against the Born Alive Infant Protection Act was that there was already legislation on the book protecting those babies. The trouble with that was that the Attorney General was declining to prosecute precisely because there was not a law on the books adequate to the task. So Senator Obama is simply making up stories here to cover really a despicable decision that he made. He should simply admit that what he did was wrong. He was overzealous in trying to protect abortion and had gotten so overzealous that he was actually protecting what amounts to a form of infanticide, and that he's sorry. And people make mistakes. But he's not doing that. He's making up stories, and those stories are very easily then proven to be false by anyone who looks into the facts.
Where does he stand on partial birth abortion?
Well, unfortunately, there, too, he's on the extreme edge of the so-called pro-choice movement. There are many, many people who support legal abortion, call themselves pro-choice, who draw the line at partial birth abortion. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, one of them, famously said, he was the late senator from New York, famously said that he drew the line there because this was just too close to infanticide. The baby's 3/4 or more outside the mother's womb. The abortionist is holding the baby by the feet, Glenn. That's how you perform a partial birth abortion. The baby's feet are being held by the abortionist. He jams a pair of Metzenbaum scissors into the base of the skull of the baby, which the head is still in the womb, and then he opens the scissors and inserts a suction device to remove the brain material and collapse the brain. I'm sorry to be graphic here, but let's look the facts in the face. And even though Moynihan and a lot of other so-called pro-choice Democrats drew the line there and said, we're not going to support that, we're going to support legislation to stop that, Barack Obama did not support that legislation. And they came up with an excuse that, well, it didn't have a health exception. The trouble is,
you know what? This health exception for partial birth abortion. Can anyone provide any documentation anywhere from any doctor that a woman is physically in danger if she doesn't have this procedure done? It doesn't make any sense that you would have a woman give birth, then hold the baby inside her while you kill it. It doesn't make any sense. They're talking about mental health. And I'm sorry, but can't you provide at least as much much documentation that maybe having a woman go through that procedure might affect her mental health in a negative way later down the road?
You're right.
Have you ever seen the documentation? Do they have any documentation on a woman's physical health in danger if they don't provide that particular procedure? There
is no evidence for it. They don't have evidence for it. You could always simply deliver the baby, right? You could always deliver the baby, and that would terminate the pregnancy. There would no longer be a pregnancy, but there would be a living baby outside of the womb. I don't know if you know this case. When the partial birth abortion bill was being debated in the Congress, Rick Santorum confronted Barbara Boxer, who was a great pro-abortion supporter, confronted her and said, well, look, what do you do if the baby emerges from the womb? What if the baby's head slips out? What do you do then? When does the baby have the right to life? And at one point, Boxer said, when the parents are taking the baby home from the hospital. She then had that expunged from the congressional record, that terrible comment she made. But fortunately for us in the age of C-SPAN, we know she made that comment because it's there archived in the C-SPAN coverage of the Senate debate.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, we've had conversations about this before. This is the kind of stuff, especially, I mean, with the kind of crippling debt that is coming our way, and the conversation that we have to have on Social Security and everything else. Once you start to go down this road, please correct me if I'm overstating this, but this is exactly the first kinds of steps that you have to take to be able to go through the situation that Nazi Germany went through.
Well, we always have to be careful because of the uniqueness of the Holocaust and of the sheer bigotry of the Nazis. There are many, many people of goodwill. You and I know them, Glenn. They're friends of ours. Many people of goodwill who countenance legal abortion. They call themselves pro-choice. They're not dishonorable people. I believe they are very seriously misguided. But there is truth in what you say for this reason. It wasn't the Nazis who created the vile doctrine of Lebens unwertes Leben, lives unworthy of life. The Nazis picked up that slogan and that doctrine and began killing handicapped people.